Hi, and good morning, DICE. I have to say I have a personal sweet spot for DICE because it had a pretty big part in a decision that I made to jump from 20 years in TV and going into games. And it was early 2022, and I came here contemplating, and I looked around and I thought, these are my people. I saw so much passion and innovation and just this intersection, right, that we sit in between technology, content, social media, and I just had to do it, so thank you, DICE. I am incredibly honored to be on stage with Tami. I don't know if you follow Tami, but if you don't, you should, because she's doing, seriously, God's work, not just for Roblox, but for, I think, humanity in general. So I'm really excited.
That's very kind, and a big overstatement, but thank you, I appreciate the sentiment.
So the context for this conversation is Tami and I met at a work dinner about earlier last year, and seriously, you could see fire lit above the table as we started talking about teens and mental health and the state of our youth, and then very quickly jumped from some pretty grim and dark data that we're gonna share with you today. I think it's fair to say our kids are not okay. But very quickly, because we're so solution-oriented, we jumped into initiatives, solutions. What are we doing? What other people are doing? And all the data also and the research that we have been collecting individually for our companies and just seeing, data out there. So we wanted to bring this conversation here to this room because we think it's incredibly important, and we know that there are leaders in this room that have a lot of power and impact. So yeah, we wanted to bring it here.
So one of the things that fired us up, so a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis is, at Roblox, is I head up an area called civility. And we bridge the gap, education gap, between young people and their parents and educators. And as part of my job, I am out there, I'm working with academics, I'm working with the Digital Wellness Lab at Boston Children's Hospital. As part of my work, I get a lot of data, a lot of research that basically shares the good, the bad, and the ugly of the state of Gen Alpha and Gen Z. And one of the things that we do at Roblox is we take all of this data and we feed it back into our product and engineering groups so that we can continue to innovate the product to make sure that we're doing the right things to help our community to thrive. As part of this research, I came across this amazing organization. I'll get a little bit into this in a little bit. But there were some really interesting numbers that you all need to be aware of. So the research was called Reality Bites. This is the grim reality that you see here behind me. 73% of kids 16 to 24 say they're lonely. That's a huge percentage. This research was conducted in the US, but I also know this is a global issue as well. 60% of adolescents worry about their ability to achieve a successful future. 50% report a constant feeling of sadness or hopelessness. You can read the numbers, right? Anxiety, depression is continuing to go up every single year. Why is that? It's a constant bombardment of news and media, the state of the world, climate change. There are a lot of different factors that are playing into this. Social media feeds, the algorithms that they're watching, it all plays into this whole reality. Can you click to the next slide?
Yeah. Just to say, like, one of the things that, that you and I talked about that kind of stayed with me after the conversation is the sense of hope, right? We all grew up with this dream that we can do what we want and be passionate about the things we're passionate about and have a career that is, optional for us. And in all of the data that I've been collecting as well, and the data that is coming from this research, I think what we're seeing is that they're feeling a sense of hopelessness, sorry. Really there's a feeling of lack of hope of what the future is bringing, whether it's climate, whether it's career, whether it's just the state of the world and loneliness and all of that. But that concept of hope, I think, is something that we're going to touch on as we continue.
There is good. We won't
We're
leave
gonna
you
come
in
there.
this like depressed state. There's opportunity here, right? So in my wanderings, I discovered this amazing nonprofit organization called the Center for Scholars and Storytellers, and they're out of UCLA. They are a bunch of researchers and psychologists that specialize and focus in on researching teens, specifically for the purpose of educating all of us on what teens want, what they were looking for, how do we create content that resonates authentically with them. And so I highly encourage you to go to their website and check out the full research report. I think it might be very, very helpful in the work that you all do.
So one of the most eye-opening, I think, findings that came out of this research and other research that we've seen is there is a feeling or a conception that Gen Alpha and Gen Z are a little superficial and that they care about these viral trends and that they want to be famous and want to be rich. And when they were actually asked about the goals that are the most important to them, this is what came out. They want to be safe. They want to be kind to others. They want to be accepted. They want to be in great shape. Fitness and well-being is a massive part, and we'll get to some of the exciting opportunities around that later. But yeah, they want to be a part of a community. They want to be spiritually connected together, and this is way before being rich and being famous. I have a Gen Z and an Alpha at home. My son is Gen Z and my daughter is Alpha, and they constantly blame each other who started Skibidi Toilet Generation. And I think this says neither. We think of them as superficial, but they're actually very, purposeful.
And I think that, I think Gen Zers really get a bad rap. They are, and I spend a lot of time with them. I have 2 daughters, but then also with my work. They are amazing. They are different than we are. They are very thoughtful. I think we were talking about it last night. They're a little bit messy, and this is self-described. They're a little messy, right? But they have amazing ideas. They're very creative. And I think that there's a lot of positivity from that standpoint. So this data actually reflects that.
Yeah, so I think, so there's additional data that was found that, and that's not going to surprise you, 88% are playing games, right? They're platform agnostic, genre agnostic. They just play games. It's what they do. It's like watching TV. And 70% of them said that they're playing to be social. So that's their playground. I think that's not surprising to you either. But what surprised us is that they wanted positive escapism. They wanted uplifting content, and that was higher than action and sport and many other categories that were up there in the past. Uplifting content, again, the sense of hope, a place that lets you have hope, came number 1. Romance, I seriously am worried about the population in the future because these kids do not care about romance. They want stories about friendships. They want to be connected, through a community. But the stories that they want to see are stories about friendships, about people coming together to solve problems together. And it was, a very significant finding. Fantasy over reality, something that we always also talk about. Again, escapism. They want to be taken to a place, that is of a different realm with characters and creatures, and just kind of be, forget a little bit about the reality that they live in.
And this point, this is really important, right? Fantasy and escapism has gone up by 35% in a year. That's pretty incredible, right? And what that says is that, they're dealing with a lot in the real world, and they're looking for content that allows them to just have that reprieve for a moment.
One little thing, not maybe relevant all for this room, but movies are not dead. So if you are in the movie business, thumbs up, because they are very excited about first releases, especially. I think they were talking also about concerts and other places that are basically an event where they can go with friends and consume content together, which they don't do a lot. So that also was kind of high up.
But you all have jobs, because 88% of people play games. So that's good news.
Authenticity.
Authenticity. So this was like the #1 thing that was so important to these teens. And interestingly enough, video games ranked as second in terms of what medium feels the most authentic to them. And I think that there are realities to video games, especially with what I do at Roblox, user-generated content, and this reflects, given the most authentic social media platform, YouTube and TikTok were ranked as the top 2, UGC, right? So UGC is such an important and meaningful area for teens, because they feel like they're actually seeing themselves reflected. And it's, I think again, it goes back to one of the teens said, it is cringeworthy in movies, not in games, but in movies, when movies depict teens on social media. Typically, the teens are sullen, they're looking down, it's very stereotypical, and the things that they say are literally cringeworthy. So again, if you're use teens to actually validate the work that you're doing.
So a couple of things we talked about, in the area of authenticity. One could argue that it conflicts with their desire for fantasy, right? On one hand, they want to be, in complete kind of storytelling that is not authentic, and on the other hand, they're looking for authenticity. And when we looked a little deeper, it basically showed that they do differentiate between consumption of fiction and consumption of lifestyle and consumption of news, for example, and that's where they want to consume it from people they trust. That's when UGC is stronger than us making things for them. But the good news is video games came pretty high on authenticity. I think, traditional media, news should be a little more worried. Social media came highest, I think that accepted. And then if we look at the platforms, YouTube, TikTok, I would say this was a surprise to me. I thought that Reddit, I thought that Twitch, I thought that Discord are gonna come high, but YouTube and TikTok actually were the highest in authenticity. So this is, again, some of the data that we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of more data, and we can spend hours and hours on the screen here, on stage here, talking about, what platforms they're using and when and how they're consuming. But I think we wanted to really spend the time talking about initiatives and opportunities and what we all in this room can be doing and what others are doing. And so, yeah, let's jump into that.
Let's jump into that, because that's really kind of fun stuff. We didn't want to bore you with and bring you down, but we thought it was important to set the stage with some realities given the numbers that we're seeing. So one of the things at Roblox that I really, really get excited about is working with our developers and our creators. We have millions of experiences and games on Roblox, 100% developed by these amazing young people. We've been around for 20 years. So a lot of the kids, and we call them kids, started on Roblox when they were 12. And they're now, in their mid-20s, 30s, and they're still part of this amazing ecosystem that brings people together, and they share information, knowledge, and inspiration. And so, again, focusing in on some of the things that make them feel safe. We invest in a lot of safe features, product features, algorithms, AI, that helps people to feel safe.
Can you talk a little about, we were talking last night at dinner, and we talked about AI and how AI is allowing you to listen to activities in games and act on them, and how you're working not just with Roblox, but other media companies and tech companies to compare and to connect all of the data.
Yeah, this is something really important for all of us. There is a huge ecosystem at Roblox, and so we have an opportunity. We have 85 million daily active users on our platform. If you think about that, we are larger than many countries in the world. So we have a responsibility, but we also have an opportunity. We have some of the top engineering talent in the world. We are developing tools and technology that we want to share with the world. In fact, we just announced we are co-partners in an initiative called Roost, and it's robust, open, online safety tools. And it is AI that is completely open for anybody to use, so small and medium-sized companies can use these AI algorithms that we have developed. Other companies like OpenAI and Google are also contributing to Roost as well, same with Discord, as well as a bunch of nonprofits. But the bottom line is that we look at this as not a competitive advantage. If a bad actor is on our platform, we chase them off. Guess what? They're going to your platform and your platform. So we need to gather together and hold hands and make sure that we're creating an ecosystem that is truly safe, right? We're sharing that with some of the biggest organizations in the world, like the United Nations, UNICEF, and sharing it with different governments around the world. So we're taking this very, very seriously. With the advent of AI, there's tremendous opportunity. So, I mean, that's the good news. For Roblox specifically, we're using AI from a moderation standpoint to make sure that we're tracking keywords and patterns. We can see if there's something sketchy going on, and we can stop things before it happens. So again, the algorithms are just simply going to get smarter and smarter. So I'm really looking forward for a time when the online world can be safer than the real world.
The idea that also we talked about yesterday, and I'm really excited about what you guys are doing with the Teen Council. So it's not just how do we make them safe or how do we think what they want, is bringing them in and having them a part of the discussion. Do you want to talk about that?
So about a year and a half ago, we partnered with the Digital Wellness Lab, Boston Children's Hospital, and we convened over 100 thought leaders around the world, you name it, researchers, academics, child psychologists, pediatricians, teens themselves, policymakers, and we workshopped a hypothesis. If we were going to make, in the next 5 years, an online world that it was safe and civil, what would need to happen in technology innovation, policy, and education? I'll cut to the chase. The one thing that came out resolutely through everything was include youth meaningfully, include teens meaningfully, from identifying the problem to figuring out what the solution and iterating. So about a few months ago, about 6 months ago, we announced our own teen council. And so bringing our teens in to work with our product teams, to work with each other to develop education content from teens for teens, because that's going to be much more effective than me sitting there talking to a teen about how to stay safe or any sort of media literacy learnings. They're going to get it from other teens. So the power of teens is something that, and I'm seeing a trend, right? So other companies are doing this too because they're realizing the importance of incorporating teens in the development cycle from the very beginning. And that doesn't mean just having a focus group, bringing them in and saying thank you and saying goodbye, right? And you never see them again. But having them fully integrated throughout the entire system is something that's so critical and important to authenticity of the end product.
And it's something that we're doing as well at Astrid. We finished a playable demo, and immediately we went into family and friends and brought a group of teens that are not going to just play it now, but now continue in becoming our advisory board. And the things that they saw and the things that they mentioned were really eye-opening. Like, I'm very happy we did it very, very early on. It was very positive and wonderful, but just these tweaks and just these thoughts that we just don't think like them, and we just need to accept that we don't think like them.
Can you tell me, so at Astrid, tell us a little bit about Astrid and some of the work that you're working on right now.
So Astrid was just about kind of the uplifting and fantasy and all of this data that I also saw very early on. When we founded Astrid, it was based on this idea that we want to make positive really fun. We looked at, some of the action games out there and the violent games. We looked at cozy games, and we just felt neither was that, and we wanted something in the middle that will be social, definitely social, allow young people to create their own community, so it's not a big server that you meet strangers on. It's actually downloading a fantastical world that you own, and then you can play with your friends. We talked a lot about uplifting content, but again, how do you make it energetic and fun, and how do you unlock powers, and how do you, how do you bring the best of RPG, basically, and layer in also UGC and creativity and all of that fun. So very early on, we knew that our target is our teens. We knew that the content that we want to make is something that we're seeing them want and look for in other places, but we wanted to create a really unique experience that is not offered yet. And yeah, so we prototyped now, created a demo, and having now both family and friends sessions and quantitative research that is validating it in a very exciting way.
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting space, and what we're seeing that's really taking off at Roblox, really taking off, is these fantasy genres that actually bring people together, solving the loneliness problem, right? So as an example, there is a young developer, her name is Mista. Anne Schumacher is her real name. I'm not sharing anything that I shouldn't be. She's been out in the media. But she started playing Roblox when she was 13. She's now 25. And she taught herself 3D modeling. She taught herself how to code. She was pretty incredible. She developed a lot of friends within the Roblox development community and has since developed a lot of really, really popular games. Right now, her most recent game is Mermaid Life. And it's a fantasy game that empowers girls. You get to swim around. It's a fashion game, self-esteem. You use sand dollars to buy things. And her whole focus is empowering girls and trying to also inspire them to become developers and game designers. And that's really her wish. She just rolled this out, and there's already 100 million visits. So there is an appetite, right, for this type of genre and this type of fantasy game that is truly authentic to her belief and what she's doing.
Yeah, one other company that I'm really excited about is Talufa Games. And Jenny Xu spoke at Google, and I heard her talk about how she realized that fitness and well-being is a big part of this generation focus, and how she gamified it and made it a lot of fun. And so in real life, you walk and do physical activities, and your fitness basically progress is then brought into the game, where you unlock powers and gear, and you're able to battle with mean creatures that represent mental health. I think at one point, for a very small company in a game, they had 55,000 concurrent players. And just the anecdotes that people are sending her about this is life-changing, and finally you understand us. So I think, again, Gen Z, making games for Gen Z, very powerful. But also I think how she's taking the technology that allow us now, with the phone, to track our fitness and our activities and bring it into a game and make it exciting and fun. I always say, wrap the broccoli with chocolate. I know it's disgusting, but you know what I mean. It's always about the fun, right? It's always about making it fun and not feeling educational or that we feel bad for them. Or, another big thing that we talked about is authenticity. Like, how can we be more authentic with them? I can tell you from our research, they know when you're paying influencers to promote your game. They know it. They're wicked. They are kind of able to feel whether it's a one-time thing that influencer is doing, how passionate they are about it. And they're like, yeah, they don't register it. So how can we team up with content creators in a more meaningful way is something to think about. So the same way as we have Teen Council and we're bringing them into the development process, how do we bring content creators and how do we partner with them rather than capitalizing on their fandom, which is not translating.
We have another developer who created a game called Dance Your Blocks Off. And she started dancing when she was 3 years old, right? And so this is very authentic to her. She's also using all of our engines to like develop these amazing dance costumes for all sorts of shapes and sizes, and it moves the way you want to move. The real dancers move. And she's like hit it out of the park. And with these 2 different games that she's created. Well, because it's so authentic to dancers, she's picked up all of these YouTube influencers, and she's not paying them. They're actually just genuinely having fun playing the game because they either have a dance background. And so going back to the importance of authenticity, that's just another example of making sure that you're not just creating a game and trying to pay influencers, because teens can absolutely tell when their heart's not in it.
Yep. And I think, you know, a lot of fun, right? Like games at the end of the day are about finding the fun. They are looking to have a lot of fun. I think if you go back to kind of the numbers that we showed you about the number 1 being feeling, you know, safe, still number 2 and number 3 were about having fun. And this is kind of where we have a lot of agency to look at what other things matter to them and bring it into the fun. Again, you could look at it as an obligation, but I think it's an opportunity. I think knowing who the new generation is, that they're thinking differently than us, that they're playing differently than us, that they're consuming news differently than us, that they don't see the traditional media, the traditional marketing, the traditional communication as valid. They call it BS. I think knowing all of this is just gonna help us, you know, as we're making fun.
And this developer, we just finished a developer survey, and the developer survey, we were shocked, but they prioritized fun over monetization by 4 times. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And so again, focusing on something that's truly unique and authentic to your heart is something that really has made Roblox so successful, is because of these Gen Zs creating things that are truly meaningful to them and their lives.
We have 2 more minutes.
I will tell you with the minute that we have a game called Aloe Sanctuary and Aloe Yoga. I don't know if you guys know the exercise brand. They're awesome. They created this experience on Roblox, and it was about mindfulness and meditation, taking deep breaths. I highly encourage you to go into it. You'll like find this calm and peace. And within the first week, there were 8 million visits. And the responses that we got back from the people who were in it said it was the first time they'd ever tried meditation. His parents were getting a divorce, and they were constantly screaming at each other, and it was stressing him out. When this happened, he puts headphones on, he goes into Aloe Sanctuary, and it was the first time he found peace. And so as you're creating your games and you're creating concepts, think about Gen Zs and how you can help them attack this loneliness that they're feeling, how they can attack the anxiety that they feel. I think it's
important to say, and I should have said it earlier on, that we're not seeing any negativity about violence, you know, violent games, shooter games, action games. Like, there's nothing to say that these are bad, right? These are escapism on their own merit and are working for them. Like, if you do look at the other categories below fantasy and uplifting content, you will see that it's action games. So again, this is not to say, oh, Gen Z and Alpha want to, you know, to treat them, you know, in a calm, relaxed way. No, they want action, they want fun. I just think that
there's opportunities
there's
for
so many more.
lots
There's
of
just
different
so
genres.
much white space. And again, I am now steeped and deep into this research that we're also doing, and we're getting so much. And by the way, if anybody wants to reach out and get more data, you know, nerd data, please reach out. Because we are seeing a lot of validation for like all these like new hybrids and new intersections that are really working for them.
Anyways, we're out of time. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
Thanks.